We are told that football is the great equalizer. We are told that the FIFA World Cup is the ultimate global stage where merit, talent, and passion are the only currencies that matter. But for decades, that stage wasn't a global theater. It was an exclusive, Eurocentric country club. And the gatekeepers did everything they could to keep the rest of the world out. Welcome back to the African Teapot. I am Exie. Today, we are lacing up our boots and stepping onto a different kind of pitch. We are looking at the FIFA World Cup not through the sanitized lens of corporate highlight reels, but through a radical post-colonial African perspective. Because when you look at the history of the tournament, you realize that every single inch of ground African football occupies today wasn't handed down as a gift. It was fought for. It was bought with defiance, political warfare, and a legendary continent-wide boycott. Pour your tea, because we are going back to the moment Africa told FIFA, respect us or play by yourselves.
Welcome to African Teapot Podcast. My name is Exie and I'm your host. Journey with me through Africa's vast variety of culture, heritage, and discuss issues most African families face, both home and abroad. Make sure you add this podcast to your frequent podcast rotations, and don't forget to share and follow this podcast.
To understand the African perspective on the World Cup, you have to understand the mid-20th century. This was an era of intense, intoxicating liberation. New flags were going up across the continent, nations were declaring independence, and young African states were using football as a literal canvas to paint their new identities. Ghana, Nigeria, Guinea, they weren't just building governments. They were building footballing powerhouses to showcase their sovereignty to the world. But over at FIFA headquarters in Switzerland, it was still the dark ages. In the build-up to the 1966 World Cup in England, FIFA colonial mindset was on full display. Do you know what they did? They decreed that the entire continent of Africa, along with Asia and Oceania, should have to compete against each other for just one single shared qualifying spot in the tournament. Think about the insulting math of that. Europe got 9 guaranteed spots, South America got 3, Africa, representing dozens of newly independent nations bursting with talent, got just a fraction of one seat. To make matters worse, FIFA stubbornly insisted on allowing apartheid South Africa to attempt qualification, blinding themselves to the regime's systematic oppression. This is where Ohen Jan enters the chat. He was Ghana's director of sport and a brilliant, uncompromising visionary working under President Kwame Nkrumah. Jan looked at FIFA's layout and called it exactly what it was: an insult disguised as a tournament structure. He sent a telegram to FIFA calling the decision strategically unfair and politically unjust. When FIFA refused to budge, assuming the whole continent would simply fall in line, Africa did something unprecedented. Backed by Kwame Nkrumah and led by Jan, all 15 African nations that entered in the qualifiers pulled out of the tournament. Simultaneously, a total uncompromising boycott. Imagine the immense risk. These were young nations desperate for global validation, deliberately walking away from the biggest stage on earth at the time. But they understood a fundamental truth. Token inclusion is worse than exclusion. By refusing to participate in their own marginalization, they forced FIFA to look at an empty qualifiers bracket. Guess what? The boycott worked. And by 1970, FIFA cracked under the pressure and granted Africa its very first independent guarantee spot, filled by Morocco. So you could see there how the rebellion broke the gate. Now, once Africa got its foot in the door, the mission shifted from gaining entry to demanding structural equity. Because even with guaranteed spots, the global football establishment still treated African teams like exotic novelties. Happy to be here. Underdogs who brought color and flair, but lacked tactical intelligence and discipline. Until 1982, there was the year that Algeria arrived in Spain and utterly shocked the footballing cosmos by defeating the reigning European champions, West Germany, 2-1. It remains one of the greatest upsets in sports history, a masterclass in swift counter-attacking football. But what followed exposed the deep corruption of the establishment when its hegemony was threatened. In the final group match, West Germany and Austria realized that a specific 1-0 win for Germany would allow both of them to advance, intentionally eliminating Algeria. What followed became known as the disgrace of Gijon. That's if I'm pronouncing his name right. The two European teams scored an early goal and then spent the next 80 minutes passing the ball aimlessly in circles, barely running, actively colluding on global television to lock North Africans out. You know what happened? The stadium chanted Algeria in disgust. And Spanish fans waved white handkerchiefs at the blatant fraud. The world watched a rigged system protect its own, but you can't cage explosive talent forever, honestly. Fast forward then to 1990, the stage is Italy, and a 30-year-old striker named Roger Milla leads the indomitable Lions of Cameroon to an absolute tear. They defeat Diego Maradona's Argentina, they march all the way to the quarterfinals, pushing England to the absolute brink. But it wasn't just the wins, it was the way they won. Every time Miller scored, he sprinted to the corner flag and broke into iconic hip swearing dances. That single image did something profound. Up until this day, it shifted the psychological balance of power. It forced Europe and South America to realize that African football wasn't just organized or athletic, it possessed a unique, joyful, and brilliant tactical mastery that could dismantle the old guard on its own terms. Truly, that brings us to the modern era. Today, after decades of fighting, eventually led to the recent tournament expansion, where Africa's representation has doubled to a record 10 guaranteed spots. On paper, it looks like the ultimate structural victory. And during the group stages, it looked like a dream come true. In an unprecedented showing, 9 out of 10 African teams advanced into the knockout rounds. From Cape Verde's fairy tale to Egypt breaking its historic knockout curse, the continent proved its baseline talent is undeniably elite. But the African perspective requires us to look past the celebration and look squarely at the modern trap. We watch an agonizing, reoccurring script play out in the rounds of 32. 5 of our teams, Senegal, DR Congo, Côte d'Ivoire, South Africa, and Egypt, were eliminated by conceding decisive, heartbreaking goals after the 85th minute. Leads dissolved in extra time, defensive line fractures in the final second. Senegal surrendered to Belgium, and South Africa conceded to a 92nd minute winner to Canada. This isn't a talent problem. No, it's not, if you ask me. It's an infrastructure and a resource problem. The World Cup highlights a frustrating hyper-capitalist paradox. Africa produces the most globally dominant superstars on the planet. The Mo Salahs, the Sadio Manes, Roger Milla, Etofis, DJ Drogba, even current Mbappe, right? We can go on and on. Yet, our domestic leagues are starved of capital. European clubs aggressively scout our young talent, extract it, and profit off of it. leaving domestic setups without the elite sports science, tactical academies, and late-game psychological training required to survive the brutal, thin margins of knockout football. When we watch the World Cup, we are watching our raw materials being exported, refined in Europe, and sold back to us as a luxury product. Honestly, the target is no longer just about causing a heroic upset or making a respectable run like Morocco did in 2022. The modern African perspective is about demanding the economic and structural resources to finish the job. The journey from the total silence of the 1966 boycott to having 9 teams storm the knockout stages proves one thing. The African story at the World Cup has never been about charity. It has always been about forcing a Eurocentric world to reckon with our excellence. We are no longer underdogs or just happy to be invited to the party. We are the continent that shapes the very soul, the rhythm, and the future of this beautiful game. So next time you watch an African player wave their flag on the world stage, remember the history. Remember the defiance of Ohanijan. Again, if I'm saying his name right. Remember the pitch is and always has been a space of liberation for us. Thank you for sitting with me today on the African Teapot. I am Exy. Keep your tea hot, your mind sharp, and I'll catch you in the next episode.
Thank you for listening and hope you join me for the next episode. You can always reach us via email at africanteapot@gmail.com and follow us on Instagram at african_teapot.